And who, exactly, is this? Clarissa purred. A friend of yours, dear sister. Daniel's gaze flickers to Clarissa for only a second before returning to Adira. His jaw tightens, his hands clenching at his side. She doesn't belong here, Daniel said, his voice low but steady. She's living with me. And who are you to decide that? Lady Eleanor asked, her voice smooth yet cold. A lowly village worker. You think you can take something that belongs to this family? Adira swallows hard, torn between relief at Daniel's presence and fear of what he's walking into. This wasn't just about her anymore. If Daniel pushed too far, they could ruin him. And she wouldn't let that happen. Adira abruptly stands, her voice cutting through the tension. I don't belong to anyone, she said firmly. Not to this house. Not to you. And I will live on my own terms. Clarissa burst into laughter, clapping her hands slowly in mock applause. Oh, how bold you've become, Clarissa taunted. But don't fool yourself, Adira. You'll never escape us. You are, and will always be, beneath us. Daniel takes a threatening step forward, his expression darkening. Say that again, Daniel's voice was dangerously calm. I dare you. Clarissa hesitates for a moment, caught off guard by his intensity. Then, a slow smirk creeps back onto her face. You must really like her, she mused. How sweet. But tell me, what can you offer her? A life of poverty. She'd come crawling back within a year. Daniel's expression shifted slightly. He didn't care what Clarissa thought. He cared what Adira wanted. And from the way she looked at him, he knew she wanted freedom. Adira reaches for Daniel's hand, lacing her fingers with his. She had made her decision. And no amount of threats, wealth, or manipulation would change it. If you walk out of here now, Adira, you are nothing to this family, Lady Eleanor warned. No name. No inheritance. Nothing. Adira takes a deep breath, holding Daniel's hand tighter as she turns to leave. Then I guess I was nothing to you all along, she whispered, and without another word, she walked away. Adira had made her choice. She had walked away from wealth, from the family that never truly loved her. But what now? Where would she go? Could she truly start over? Daniel stops in front of a small but cozy cottage on the edge of the village. This is home, Daniel said softly. It's not much, but it's yours now too, if you want it. Adira stands frozen, staring at the cottage, emotions warring inside her. A home. A real home, she said. Not a grand estate where she was unwanted, not a place where she was constantly reminded she didn't belong. Just warmth and peace. Daniel wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. But he had something the Langstons never did, kindness. And for the first time in years, Adira felt safe. She had spent so many years yearning for a home, thinking it had to be grand and filled with riches. But maybe home was never about wealth. Maybe it was about feeling wanted. Daniel watches her carefully, his hands tucked into his pockets. You don't have to worry about anything, Daniel said gently. But no matter what happens, you're not alone anymore. Adira nods, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She had spent so long surviving alone. The thought of someone standing by her side, it was almost too much to believe. Meanwhile, back at the Langston estate, Clarissa had always been the one in control. She dictated Adira's suffering, ensured her place was beneath them. And now, she was gone. Just like that. Lady Eleanor sits in a high-back chair, her expression unreadable. "She will come back," Lady Eleanor said coldly. "She has nothing. She is nothing. Let her struggle. Let her crawl back. And if she doesn't," she mused, "what if she finds something better? Then we'll ensure she comes back by all means," Lady Eleanor said, her voice like ice. "If Adira thinks she can escape, we will remind her why she never could." Back in the village, Adira and Daniel sit by the fire, warmth casting a soft glow over their faces. And for the first time in a long time, Adira felt something unfamiliar. Hope. But danger still loomed in the shadows. Daniel had promised himself he wouldn't get too close. He wouldn't let her into his world. But watching her now, he wasn't sure he could keep that promise. Adira hesitantly reaches for a small cup of tea, her hands still trembling. She should be scared. She should be overwhelmed. But something about being here, in this small home with Daniel, made the fear lessen just a little. A dangerous glint in Clarissa's eyes. She muttered, "If she thinks she can just live and live happily ever after, she's mistaken, I'll make sure of that." She stops at her desk, pulling open a drawer and retrieving a folded piece of parchment. "Time to remind Adira where she belongs," she whispered, a wicked smile forming. Meanwhile, Daniel walks through the village market, his eyes scanning the surroundings carefully, as if he's expecting trouble. They wouldn't just let Adira go. And he wouldn't let them take her back, he said. But he wasn't the only one watching. Someone else had been waiting for the right moment to strike. She had spent so long trapped in a cage of luxury, she had forgotten how it felt to just exist. To breathe without fear. But as she turns a corner, she freezes. A letter nailed to the wooden fence in front of her catches her eye. Her name was scrawled across the parchment. A message from the past she thought she had left behind. Her hands shake as she rips the letter down, her eyes scanning the words in horror. The letter says, "You will never escape us." Daniel arrives just as she stumbles back, his hands catching her shoulders. "Adira, what's wrong?" She hands him the letter, her heart pounding. "They found me," she whispered. "They are coming for me." Daniel's grip tightens on the parchment, his jaw clenching as his protective instincts flare. "Not if I stop them first." Meanwhile, at Daniel's house very far from the village, Daniel's father had grown tired of waiting. It was time to bring his son home and reveal the truth. Back at the village, Daniel prepares a horse, his expression dark with determination. He had spent years hiding his past. But now, to protect Adira, he would have to face it. Adira watches him from the doorway, worry creasing her brow. She had only just found freedom. But was it already slipping through her fingers? Clarissa, dressed in an elegant gown, steps into a lavish carriage, her lips curled in satisfaction. The game had only just begun. Daniel turns to Adira, his eyes filled with something unspoken. "No matter what happens, Adira, I won't let them take you back." A storm brews on the horizon as Adira and Daniel ride off, unaware of the forces closing in on them from all sides. The past was coming for them. And this time, there would be no running. For the first time in her life, Adira did not shrink before the Langstons. The fear that had once chained her heart was gone. No more begging. No more silent suffering. The Langstons had stripped her of everything except her will to survive. And now, standing tall, she met their scorn with unyielding strength. "You think you have a place in this world, girl?" Lady Eleanor's voice was like ice. She waved the letter in the air. We found out where your real parents are. Do you know why they abandoned you? Because you were never meant to belong anywhere. Pain flared in Adira's chest, but she did not let it break her. She had spent years longing for love from people who would never give it. Maybe it was time she stopped searching for acceptance where there was none. Daniel walks forward. Before Adira could respond, Daniel's voice rang out. Enough, he said, his tone steady. You don't deserve to speak to her like that. His words silenced the room, his presence suddenly overwhelming. Something was changing. The Daniel she had known was quiet, humble. But this Daniel, there was an authority in his voice, a fire in his gaze. Who was he, really? A black car pulls up in front of the Langston estate. The moment the car door opened, Adira felt a shift in the air. The man who stepped out was older, powerful. His gaze landed on Daniel, and in that instant, everything clicked into place. The older man approaches Daniel, gripping his shoulder. The Langstons freeze in shock. Son, it's time to come home. The words cut through the silence like a blade. Son. Daniel, her Daniel, was the heir to one of the wealthiest families in the country. Lady Eleanor stumbles back, her face pale, while Clarissa grips her mother's arm. Panic flashed across Mrs. Langston's face. The boy they had belittled, mocked, and tried to destroy was a billionaire's son. This could not be happening. Daniel turns to Adira, his eyes filled with emotion. I never wanted you to know me as the billionaire's son. I wanted you to know me as the man I truly am. And Adira, you are the only one who ever saw me for me and not my money. Daniel kneels before Adira, his hands gently holding hers. Adira's heart pounded. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But when Daniel looked up at her, his expression raw and sincere, she knew he had chosen her. Come with me, Adira, he whispered. Let's leave this place together. Mrs. Langston clasped her hands together, trying to appear desperate. Daniel, we didn't know, Mrs. Langston stammered. Please, let's talk about this. We've always treated Adira as our own, haven't we? But the truth was written in the scars on Adira's heart. Daniel had done more than just stand up for her, he had ensured that they would never hurt her again. The Langstons would pay for their crimes. And now Adira was finally free. Adira steps into a luxury car beside Daniel, the Langstons watching in defeat. As the car pulled away, Adira did not look back. For the first time, she was not running from her past, she was stepping into her future. Adira stands on the balcony, wind in her hair, peace on her face. She had spent years in chains, but now she was free. Free to love. Free to live. And with Daniel by her side, she knew this was only the beginning. Daniel and Adira danced under the stars, their hands intertwined. You saved me, Adira whispered. Daniel smiled, pulling her close. No, Adira. You saved me. Under the moonlight, they danced, not as a billionaire and a poor girl, but as two souls who had found true love. Some stories don't have happy endings. But this one did. Because in the end, love had won. The girl who was once unwanted had become someone irreplaceable. The girl who was once lost had found her home. And as the waves crashed below, she knew this was forever. This story teaches us that family isn't about blood, it's about love, kindness, and respect. Adira's journey shows us that no matter how much pain and rejection we face, inner strength and resilience can lead us to a better future. It reminds us that true worth isn't measured by wealth but by character. While the Langstons had riches, they lacked compassion, and in the end, their cruelty led to their downfall. Daniel, despite appearing poor, proved that love and kindness are what truly matter. We also learned that no act of mistreatment goes unnoticed. Karma always finds its way, and justice prevails. Those who harm others will one day face the consequences of their actions. Most importantly, this story teaches that love should be based on sincerity, not material gain. Daniel hid his true identity to find someone who loved him for who he was, proving that genuine love will always shine through. Adira's journey was filled with pain, but it led her to a life of happiness, proving that sometimes, our struggles prepare us for the most beautiful endings. No matter how dark life gets, hope and kindness can light the way. Subscribe, like and share for more interesting tales.